special glasses on to watch a 3D movie. And he realized for the first time in his life he had depth perception because he'd never gone to a 3D movie before. And so he watched the movie, but what was cool, after he took the glasses off, he still could see 3D. And doctors were baffled as to what happened. And they said only thing they could figure out is that something triggered in his mind that hadn't worked before and started working. And from that time on, this individual has been able to have depth perception and vision. Cool, huh? I think what we're studying tonight is Jesus' way of helping us to see the depth of things. That just like this man, something was triggered and he was able to see something that he had probably taken for granted, but now he's able to see it. And there's three main characters that we're going to start off with. There's going to be a dragon, a woman who's pregnant, and she gives birth to a male child. And we're going to see that what's going on to those 7 churches, what Jesus is doing, he says, I want you to see the real meaning. I want you to see the depth of this, what's really going on. And that's why I think it's so practical for us, because I think that battle still exists, and you and I are dealing with it, every one of us. And so I think that's why the book was written. It was written to give us that depth perception. It was given to help us see things that we normally don't see, but we really should see. And so I think it's very, very practical. It's clouded in apocalyptic literature and all these symbols and stuff. And like I said last time, it's nothing you want to read to children at bedtime. You know, it's scary, but it's meant to be. Imagine you watching the television, and there's, you've probably seen helicopters. Either it's law enforcement or it's newspaper media trying to get a picture. And so imagine you're watching on television, and here's a helicopter that's got the camera down on the street. There's police cars converging with the lights on, and they're wheeling up there, and you look and you say, that's my neighborhood. That's my street. Would it perk your interest? That's why we need to study Revelation chapter 12, is that there's a real battle going on, and you and I are involved, personally involved. And so this is how Jesus wants John to communicate it. In Revelation chapter 12, a great sign appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept a third of the stars of the sky. Now what I get from that's showing how powerful this dragon is. That it's so powerful and so enormous that even its tail could just sweep out a section of stars. So that's the symbol. What does it mean? I think it's representing the power of the dragon, okay? And so it uses this apocalyptic literature to communicate that. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, that it might devour her child the moment he was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule the nations with an iron scepter, and her child was snatched up to God in his throne. Wow, verse 5, who is that talking about? Talking about Jesus, right? And what is it telling you? It's telling you the dragon is trying to kill the child. Remember the first Christmas? Herod. Herod heard there was a king being born, right? And what did he do to the babies in Bethlehem? He had them killed, right? We know that from the Gospels. And the cool thing, it's not apocalyptic. You can just read it. And the first Christmas is horrible. You know, the first Christmas is a horrible thing. There's a man trying to kill Jesus, right? As you read through the Old Testament, in the Garden of Eden, the Bible presents that God creates the first man and the first woman, and who is in the garden with them? The serpent. The serpent is there. You read on through the book, and you get to the time of Noah. And in Genesis 9, I think it says that the earth is just full of evil. And so God used a flood to purge it, water to purge the earth of sin. But who was prompting these people during Noah's day? Later, you read the book of Esther. You guys know the story of Esther, right? And this guy wants to kill off all the Jews, right? Kill all the Jews off. Who's responsible? All right? It's the helicopter with the video camera putting down on your street, folks. You get what I'm saying? Is that there's this demonic being that's extremely powerful, and he's ticked, and he's seeking to destroy. The Bible is full of that, and the very last book gets to this dragon with this tail that can take a third of the stars and remove them, and he's trying to kill this male child. Stan?
I was reading it last night. It piqued my attention because it's given like two different scenarios here. Like the first one, it says, Tush says she was pregnant and cried out for pain, but the footnote says that this was the birth of the nation of Israel, the Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
And it says at the time, Satan was there at that time.
As we read on, you're going to see the woman represents more than Israel. So that's what Revelation does, and we struggle with it in the West, but it changes symbols, and that's recapitulation. That's why I like that term. It rephrasing things, but differently. And the Bible does it over and over again. It goes 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls of wrath. But it's just different perspectives. So the book of Revelation will use a symbol and then change it. And usually we struggle with that. Okay. If we did that in writing, the teacher would mark our paper up. All right. But the Jewish literature would do that. They'll use a symbol and then they'll change the symbol. I think this woman will change towards the end. There's 12. This woman has 12. The number 12 is used to describe her, so that's why some think it's Israel. But who was it that gave birth to the male child? It could be Mary, right? But then later, you're going to see the dragon hurting her offspring. And who's the offspring? So the symbol seems to change later in the chapter. Verse 5, that one verse pretty much sums up all of Jesus' life in one verse. It talks about his birth, and it goes all the way to his ascension. Okay? It says, she gave birth to a son, a male child, and he'll rule all the nations with an iron scepter. Her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. There's the ministry of Jesus in one verse, which is kind of interesting. Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, the ancient serpent, okay, that goes back to Genesis, doesn't it? Called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Messiah, for the accuser of our brothers and sisters who accuses them before our God day and night has been hurled down. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens. So heaven is happy about this whole thing because the dragon's not there anymore. So that's good, right? Heaven is a wonderful place. There's no evil up there. And heaven is rejoicing that this guy who compromised and rebelled was cast out. So it's good up there. But it doesn't stop there. It says, but woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury because that he knows his day is short. We've all learned about D-Day during World War II. You have all the Allied forces going to Normandy, and they come up on the beaches, and it's just an overwhelming army. Now, people are killed in the process, but if you had an aerial view, you know who's going to win. It was decided. Those of you who've studied history, that's what I've learned. It was decided right there that from that point on, that during World War II, the enemies are going to be defeated. And all you would need is this aerial view. But it's just like Saving Private Ryan. Even though the war is already decided, there's going to be casualties in the meantime. That's what the book of Revelation is basically telling you and I. Really, it's already decided. What if we just read? The devil is not omnipotent. He's powerful, but he's not omnipotent. And so he's going down. He's a loser. All right? He's a loser. And so choose a team, but be smart. And that's really the lesson to all of us. Choose the right team. Don't follow the dragon. He's a loser. Yeah. But in the meantime, he's ticked. And he's full of fury. Do you see it? Do you see it? What happened in France is just a symptom. People want to say, God, what are you doing? They're blaming the wrong one. They're blaming the wrong one. This is telling me that this very powerful being is now here, and he is powerful, and he's a loser, and he's a sore loser. You know? And so John is telling us, look, be alert concerning this. Then in verse 13, when the dragon saw that he had been hurled to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. The woman was given the two wings of a great eagle so that she might fly off to the place prepared for her in the wilderness, where she would be taken care of for a times and a half time, out of the serpent's reach. Then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river to overtake the woman and sweep her away with the torrent. But the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring. Now, if the first part of this is alluding to Israel producing the Messiah, who's the rest here? I think it's us. That's the church. And that the serpent is trying to destroy us, just like it tried to destroy Jesus. And if you allow him, it can happen. If you choose the wrong team, it could happen to you. So this is a warning that you and I are in this battle. And who is it that he's raging war against? Against the rest of her offspring. Those who keep God's commands and hold fast to their testimony about Jesus. It tells you, right? Then you know here that the woman that her offspring that he's pursuing are Christians because they follow Jesus, right? So, as you read this, there are certain people who believe in this doctrine called premillennialism that will say, starting in chapter 8, that the church is raptured. And there's a movie out now with Nicolas Cage where it's called Left Behind. And the whole idea is that all the people that follow Jesus are taken away from the earth. And then all this stuff that we're reading in Revelation 8, 9, 10, 11, and so forth, that's talking about the rest of mankind who are left. What does this just tell me? That the devil has been pursuing those who follow Jesus and keep it. They're not taken, all right? The devil's still trying to get them, right? We haven't been taken any place. We're still here. And we're fighting this battle against the dragon. It'd be nice to be taken, right? But as I read through this, they're not taken anywhere. They're still dealing with them. They're still dealing with the dragon. But God is protecting them and working. And he's protecting those who keep his commands and hold fast their testimony about Jesus. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. So it was a dragon, and now there's a beast. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and each had a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but it had feet like those of a bear, and mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power. That's very important, that statement. That the beast gets his power from what being? From the devil. So whatever you want to make of the beast, it's empowered by the devil. Okay? Now, if you know your Old Testament, I've used this illustration before. In Daniel chapter 7, Daniel gets this dream of 4 beasts. And I had this picture up several weeks ago. And if you read Daniel chapter 7, it'll talk about something like a lion, something like a bear, something like a leopard. And then the 4th beast is like Godzilla. Okay? That it's just big and powerful and scary. Okay? So you got a lion, a bear, a leopard, and Godzilla there. Okay? That's Daniel chapter 7. Here, this beast, and it's interesting, all these beasts are coming out of the sea. Okay? In Jewish literature, things that come out of the sea, usually it's not good. Okay? So here you've got these things walking. If you're out on the beach and you saw these you were out there sunbathing, you'd run. Right? That here we go, I'm getting out of here, right? Remember Tilly Smith, who learned about a tsunami? And she said, something's coming. And she sounds the trumpet, right? And that's a good lesson for the church. When we see the beast coming out of the sea, the church needs to sound the trumpet. Okay? But this beast here has 3 of these qualities. It has this lion, bear, leopard all kind of blended together. That just means it's bad. It's fast, it's strong, it's powerful. All right? When the 7 churches read about this beast, what would they think of? This powerful, yeah. Wouldn't they think that? Yeah, the government.
If they were at the seat of government.
And what is motivating the government and giving it power? The devil. Okay, so it's possible for the devil to use government, right? That's what we're learning, that the devil can use government to hurt God's people.
If you can use people, you can certainly use the government.
Yeah, and so I think there are some things happening even in our country. I love the United States. I'm proud to be an American. And I know that I'm free, you know. However, the government can legislate things that I think is ungodly ungodly. And they can then try to force us to go by it. That happened in Rome a bunch. The Rome did that a lot to Christians. And so you got these powerful things. And so in the Old Testament, these symbols represented nations. I know in Daniel 2, Nebuchadnezzar, who's the king of Babylon, when he has this dream of gold and silver and bronze and iron and clay, this big image, the Bible tells you right there, it says, you are the head of gold. So that helps, right? That's Babylon. After Babylon, there was the Medo-Persian Empire. And after that was Alexander the Great in Greece. That's why the New Testament was written in Greek. Because Alexander, before the Romans took over, conquered the world and Greek became the language. So when you get to the time of Jesus, you've got Greek being spoken because of the Greek Empire. All right? And then after that, Rome came to rule. And Daniel gets a vision. He's able to interpret this. And three of the kingdoms are mentioned in the book of Daniel, which really is helpful. The Bible talks about Babylon, it talks about the Persians, and it talks about the Greeks. All of those empires are mentioned in the book of... The only one that's not mentioned is the one that looks like Godzilla. All right? But we know history. I took a class at Naugatuck Valley years ago, and I had a textbook called Milestones of Western Civilization. And I was reading a chapter on Babylon. Flip to the next chapter, it talks about Persia. Flip to the next chapter, and it talks about Greek. Flip to the next chapter, and it talks about Rome. And I said, there's the book of Daniel. You know, I'm serious. That textbook followed that order of history just like what you see on that chart that was mentioned by Daniel. And of course, that's inspiration. The Holy Spirit inspired Daniel to talk about things that he wasn't even aware, especially the Fourth Empire. And Daniel 2:44 says, in the days of these kings, God will set up a heaven that will never be destroyed. So it was prophesied that Christian people would come during the Roman Empire. That's exactly what happened. The church started when Rome was ruling the world. Okay? So now we got the last book of the Bible talking to 7 churches of Asia. And I believe Rome is described as this beast. And they're getting hurt by him, by the beast. David Roper, the features of the fused together beast represent, talking about that lion and the bear and the leopard that's found in this, represent power and strength. The sea beast was as swift as a leopard, as strong as a bear, as ferocious as a lion, and as vicious as any jungle beast. So that's one of my commentaries, taking this view that the beast represents Rome. Revelation 13:4, one of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound. But the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. People worshipped the dragon because it had given authority to the beast. They also worshiped the beast and asked, who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? That was true of Rome. When Rome was in its heyday, there was no one really could handle them. They were just conquering everybody. And we know that Augustus, Nero, and others started, usually after they died, the Roman citizens began to deify these Caesars. And Augustus was deified, Nero was deified. David Roper says, what would the first century readers have thought of when they read about the beast incorporating the qualities of the 4 beasts talked about by Daniel? Eddie Cloyer said, there's little doubt that in John's day, the beast was the Roman Empire, the persecutor of the church. And so Eddie Cloyer, quoted by David Roper, also believes that these symbols represent Rome. In verse 11, it says, then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the beast on its behalf and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. So now we got two beasts. But somehow this beast is encouraging people to worship the first beast. Verse 13, and it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people. Because of the signs, it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast. It deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. There's a temple of Mars, and on the inside of this temple, there was a stone relief. And on one side, on the left side, there's a goddess. On the right side, there's a god. But notice what's in the middle. The guy in the middle represents Nero. And so in this temple, the archaeologists found this stone engraving. And you've got a goddess and a god, and in the middle is a Roman emperor. Guess what they did to the goddess and the gods? They worshiped them, and guess what is this telling you? Worship Nero as well. Okay. Now that is probably about as good a picture as you can get on the idea of emperor worship. Is that emperor worship was incorporated into Greek mythology. And the Romans not only worshipped the goddesses and the gods, but they also worshipped, that's Nero there in the middle, okay? A Caesar. And he's linked in with these gods and goddesses of 2,000 years ago in Rome. Ray Summer said all these characteristics of the land beast seem to identify the second beast as the Concilia, set up in Asia Minor to enforce the state religion. This was the official body which had charge of state religion, and had as its duty to force all to do homage to the image of the emperor. So there was, you might have heard, imperial cult. Okay, Roman imperial cult. That's what the Concilia is. It was people, Roman citizens, who would go into the communities and force emperor worship. And if you didn't bow down and burn a little incense and say Caesar is God, there were social implications. And you're going to see that, I think, in this text. A man by the name of Albert Baldinger, in his commentary, said, beginning with Julius Caesar, Roman emperors had been deified. That is, were given the status and worship due to a god. The early ones after their death, but later emperors even during their lifetime, Emperor Domitian required that people address him as our Lord and God. In most of the cities to which John was writing, temples had been built to these deities, a mockery of the heavenly dwelling of the one true God. Although this policy of promoting an emperor cult came ultimately from the emperor himself, its execution lay in the hands of local officials. That would be the Concilia. These political underlings could be aptly represented by the second beast. So I think that's what the book of Revelation is talking about here. Rather than some futuristic, people will talk about the Antichrist, and they want to make the beast the Antichrist. The word Antichrist is not even found in the book of Revelation. It's not there. Okay, so I don't look at these verses and still look to, communist China or any of that stuff. I don't do that. That's not my thinking. People who did the movie Left Behind, that's their thinking. I think it's wrong, but I agree with this fellow that it's putting it back into a historical context. All the way back in the Old Testament, Deuteronomy 13, Moses said, if a prophet or one who foretells by dreams appears among you and announces to you a sign or wonder, and if the sign or wonder spoken of takes place, and the prophet says, let us follow other gods that you have not known, and let us worship them, You must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer. The Lord of God is testing you to find out whether you love him with all your heart and with all your soul. It is the Lord your God you must follow, and him you must revere. Keep his commands, obey him, serve him, and hold fast to him. That's found by Moses way back. That you're not to follow anybody that tells you to bow down. Testing. Okay. Moses even said that, hey, don't follow somebody that wants you to bow down to another god. Now back to Revelation. Verse 16, it says, it also forced people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark. See how it's affecting them socially? That if you didn't bow down to a Roman Caesar and call him God, if you went to the marketplace, you might not be able to buy your food. If you tried to open up a shop, you might not be able to sell your goods. And so that they could not buy or sell unless they had that mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of man. That number is 666. People have gone nuts over that. Remember Gorbachev had that thing on his head? And because he had that birthmark, people said, he's the one. All right? Later, there's this guy, Ronald Wilson Reagan, 666. He must be the one. I personally think that it's Justin Bieber. Okay? Because you've got Justin Andrew Bieber, 666. All right? But people go crazy. Who is the 666? I like Frank Pack. Frank Pack taught at Pepperdine University, one of our schools in California, very well known by a lot of people. But it's founded by members of the Church of Christ, And Frank Pack taught Bible there for years. And this is what Frank Pack said about 666. If the name doesn't add up, add the title. If that doesn't add up in Greek, try Hebrew or Latin. Don't be particular about the spelling or about using all the letters. And if hard pressed, just invent a name. He's being sarcastic. But what is this Bible scholar telling you? Everybody and his brother is trying to tell you about 666. I think it's this guy right here, myself, Justin Andrew Bieber is 666. I'm being sarcastic, right? 6. Less than 7. Jesus said, forgive somebody 70 times 7. Literally? The number's figured, right? You know it's figurative. He's saying the number 7 is a complete number, biblically speaking. That you just keep on forgiving. You don't calculate it. All right? Don't say it's 491, you're off the hook, No, it's not that. It means you just keep on forgiving. We understand that, right? The number 7 is complete. The beast is not. He's 666. That means he's a loser, he's a loser, he's a loser. Okay? That whatever you want to make of the beast, he's not 7. If he was 777, that would be different in Scripture. All right? But he's not 777. He's 666. I like what McGuigan said. He's a 3-time loser. Okay? So who do you want to follow? Don't follow something that's incomplete. Don't follow something that's inadequate. Don't follow something that promises and can't give. All right? The devil is incomplete. But he wants to sell you as if this will fill you. It'll complete you, right? And those of us who have tried that realize, no, it doesn't complete us. It empties us, right? We think we're being completed, but it ends up biting us. And so, whose mark is on your heart? Do you have the mark of the beast on you? You know? Who are you following? That's really the question. What's on your heart? What's on America's heart? What's on the citizens of this country's heart? And who are we following? And we need to wake up. Amen? Wake up as to who you're following. Don't follow what's incomplete and can't deliver. All right? Follow the one that can complete you and take you home. All right? And so that's really what we're reading here. That's what I'm reading in Revelation. Is that either you can follow 777 or 666. You know? You can either choose to follow the one that will complete you or the one that's incomplete. In chapter 14, we talk, here you got, those who follow the beast have a seal either on their forehead or on their hand. In chapter 14, you have another group of people that's sealed. Then I looked, and there before me was a Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000. We've talked about them before, right? Chapter 7, Revelation 7, it talks about them. Who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard the sound from heaven like the roar of rushing waters, like a loud peal of thunder. The sound I heard was like that of harpists playing on their harps. And they sang a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders. No one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. These are those, and that's why I like this whenever the Bible tells me that, these are those who did not defile themselves with women, for they remain virgins. They followed the Lamb wherever he goes. They are purchased from among mankind and offered as firstfruits to God and the Lamb. No lie was found in their mouths. They are blameless. Who's that? Christians. All right? And so, what are we learning? In chapter 13, people are worshiping the beast, right? In chapter 14, the 144,000 worship God, right? You have to choose. That's really what I see there. That you can either choose to worship the beast, or you can choose to worship God. You can be sealed by one or the other. You can have their name on you. You can either have the devil's name on you, or you could have God's name on you. These people followed the Lamb. So again, they've not been snatched up, right? They're there with the people who are worshiping the beast. They're just choosing not to worship the beast. Would that make sense to the 7 churches of Asia? Absolutely. That those 7 churches that are identified in Revelation chapter 2 and 3, they're getting hammered by Rome. And they're being pressured, and some of them are being killed because they're not bowing down to the beast. And so, rather than choosing to follow the beast, they follow the Lamb, and God is happy with that. How many of you have seen this movie? A lot of you, right? What can you tell me about it? Those of you who have seen it. Called The Untouchables.
Right.
Tell me about the movie.
Well, Blake Ness sees the corruption that is going on, of course, and then he gets these men to help him to do something about it.
Yeah.
And he does something about it.
Elliot Ness was a true character during the days of Al Capone, when Al Capone was ruling over Chicago, all right? Organized crime, Al Capone was in charge, and he was buying off. He had the money, he could buy off law enforcement and that sort of thing. There's a guy that came in to Elliot Ness's office when he was a police officer or whatever he was, worked for FBI or whatever. And he made $2,900 a year. That was his salary back then. And a man came in with an envelope that had $2,000 cash in it, put it on his desk, and told Elliot Ness, you'll receive this every week for the rest of your life if you just back off Al Capone. Elliot Ness didn't accept the offer, gave it back to him. That would be tough, wouldn't it? Gave it back to the guy and then went to the newspapers and said, he tried to pay me off. It's not going to happen. I'm going after him. And the newspaper article called them the Untouchables. Okay? As I read through the book of Revelation, if you follow Jesus, you're the Untouchables. Okay? You've made a decision not to follow the beast. All right? You've made a decision, even though it's difficult, not to go that way. And so the last text, it says, no lie was found in their mouths. They are blameless. Now, Jesus makes you that way, right? He's the one that will make you blameless. But I thought that was a good analogy. Christian people, if we don't bow down to the beast, if we follow Jesus, the beast can't get us. All right? He can't get us. And so we resist him and we're not going to follow him. And so what's the result? A third angel followed them and said in a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and its image and receives its mark on their forehead or on their hand, they too will drink the wine of God's fury, which has been poured full strength into the cup of his wrath. They will be tormented with burning sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment will rise forever and ever. There will be no rest day or night for those who worship the beast and its image, or anyone who receives the mark of his name. Is that a warning? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It says, don't bow down to the beast. Don't give in to him and don't follow him, because there's going to be consequences. God's wrath will be poured out on those who reject his son and what he did on the cross. And so don't go there. However, verse 12 says, this calls for patient endurance on part of the people of God who keep his commands and remain faithful to Jesus. Then I heard a voice from heaven say, write this, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit. They will rest from their labor, for their deeds will follow them. So there's the reward. If you follow Jesus, there'll be a day you'll be blessed. The people who follow the beast, there's going to be agony day and night. And isn't that right? I mean, if you don't follow God, if you don't have him in your heart, it can be a miserable existence. Bernie?
If you look at history, people standing up for right things, sacrificing right things they never saw. We see in the movie, of course, Elliot Ness, they sacrificed, one of those was killed and stuff, so it's happening.
Yeah.
People who stand up for what's right will make great sacrifices.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Barbara?
You said don't.
Deborah, I'm sorry. I do that. I don't know why I do that.
It's fine.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Deborah, tell me.
You said don't bow down to the beast, and as you said that, I thought how what a nuance and very dense path that is for us as Christians. Because if I go to a supermarket and I'm given more change than I'm supposed to get, part of that's small, but it's part of being followers
Yes.
following Christ.
I agree.
That's just one little thing.
I
Think
agree.
about all the bigger things like
Yeah.
ISIS. I mean, these are things that we have to be practical every day. We take 100 shots, as Michael Jordan said, and we keep practicing until we make 100
Yeah.
shots, until we make 100 shots.
Exactly.
It's not a thing that I'm going to learn sitting here, per se, but when I go out there.
And just to ditto that, there's a text where it says not only were they blameless, but it says there was no lie in their mouth.
Yes.
And that's something that a lot of times we think, oh, it's just a little, we call it a white lie, right? No, it's a lie, right? Nothing white about it at all, okay? It's wrong. And so I'm just dittoing off of that, is that if we follow the Lamb that it should be in our heart and in our head and our hands and our feet, that's what he wants. He wants us to eat the scroll, all right? Any other thoughts? Todd?
What do you think it meant in that last passage about those 144 that didn't defile themselves with women?
What do I think of it?
Yeah.
In Ephesians chapter 5, Paul talks about husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church. And then it says, in order to present the church to himself as what? Something pure and blameless and without. All right? I think it's describing us. It's describing us that Christian people are pure. All right? We're pure. If you want to go and make it literal, then it's 12,000 from 12 different tribes, and it doesn't work because that doesn't even follow the 12 tribes of the Old Testament, and it's Jews, and they've never been married if you make it literal. 144,000 are Jewish, and they're celibate if you make it literal. Folks down the street, they make it literal, and only 144,000 are going to heaven, and everybody else stays here on earth. Okay. I can't do that. I don't. I think the 144,000 in Revelation chapter 7, the last part of the chapter, the Jewish imagery changes the symbol. It goes from 144,000 to an uncountable number of people from every nation, language, and so forth. Okay. It's all of us. I think it's all of us who follow the Lamb, Todd. All right, and Jesus is the one that makes us pure. And Ephesians 5, it uses that imagery of the church being a pure bride. Okay? So that's how some of us look at it. Okay? There's a cool YouTube that I want to share with you. I think we just have enough time to get it going. Let's see if I can get it to work. Let's give it a go. Why isn't it working? I didn't test it out ahead of time, so that's part of my problem here.
I'm just first level. If it doesn't work, I'll call Jim up. You gotta broadcast it onto the thing. You're still not broadcasting. Yeah, up there.
Okay.
And
See what kind of magic you can do.
screen. Oh, that one go back? I just think they're on. Yeah, I just think they're on those.
I don't know why. Oh, bother. I really like this too.
Is the audio playing on your screen?
There's no audio coming up at all. Okay.
See, what program you're bringing up?
I don't know. This is a new machine. I haven't got it figured out yet. Jim, you try.
Look up on the screen, I don't see. Oh, you have two different things. You can't even get it to play there.
That's what I get by not playing with it ahead of time. Power cord. See if we can get it to play without any wires hooked to it.